This is Lewis Hart for Boxing Social in association with Empire Fight Store and Forged Irish Stout. Delighted today to be joined with Paul Smith. We're here in Liverpool. Natasha Jonas takes on Mikaela Mayer. Your man's on the undercard. Looking forward to Saturday night?
I am, yeah. It's a good little start. I manage young Stephen Clark. He's a ABA champion, middleweight, 75 kg, fought. He's going to be campaigning at a middleweight, trained by my brother Stephen Smith. There's Stephens everywhere, and he's looking good. He's a big ticket seller. He's took 1,000 tickets for this, and he's done the majority of them. He's probably going to do them all. He's going to be a big following all around the country, or all around the world. Fingers crossed if we get to where we hope he'll get to. And the kid's a better for year. He's a nice kid. He does everything asked of him. He's been performing well in the gym, fit as anything, and good family behind him. And good to be involved. And I think it's my brother Stephen's first fight on the top in the corner on Saturday as well. So I'm excited for him as well.
And I was just chatting to Liam now, and I was saying to him, you know, Liverpool produces so much talent throughout the years. You know, yourself, you know, your whole family, all your brothers, you know, I could say, you know, Nick Ball, Darren Till, all these guys. What do you think it is about the city that makes it such a great fighting city?
I think you've just said it yourself. It is just a fighting city. You mentioned my brother Liam. Liam said something once. We remember it was Tommy Coyle and Luke Campbell fighting in Hull for the first ever British champion from Hull. We've got 4 in our house. And it's not like bragging about us, but if you're in a gym surrounded by good fighters, then you're going to be a good fighter. If you've got top fighters in your gym, then that's the level you need to get to. So us as a city, as I say, no one else in the country's done what us 4 will do with regards to British titles or brothers winning world titles, etc. All 4 of us fighting for world titles, but because it's Liverpool, it's sort of not really looked at as a massive achievement. Whereas if we were maybe from London, if we were maybe from other parts of the country where there's not London, but if you're from other parts of the country where there wasn't much boxing, then maybe it'd be spoken about more. Or if we were American as such, it mightn't be spoken about as much as if we were Spanish, or if we were, it's because it's like, it's not really something new as an achievement, if you know what I mean, because that's the standard. If you want to be a boxer, you've got to at least get to that level. You know, if you win a British title, then that's a good level to get to. But there's fighters I'm seeing out there who are saying he had like great careers or successful careers, but they never won a British title. And for me, I don't see it that way. You know, it doesn't matter sort of what else you do in there, but the minimum standard you should be setting for yourself, and that's what kids in this city are probably growing up thinking. You know, I've got to get a British title, because all the good fighters before us have won the British titles, right back from the likes of Andy Olligan right through to the newest, latest kids in this city who've done really well, the likes of your Bellews and everyone else. And us, you all win the British title. It's a very good achievement. If you can get the world title, brilliant, exceptional. But it's it's something that's maybe not spoke about as much, but it's a good fighting city. And when you start boxing in this city, you look at all the fighters like Tasha and that coming through now. There's your standards. That's what you have to try and reach. So if you keep working hard, you'll get there. But we are a fighting city, and boxing is big in Liverpool's sport. Boxing and football.
Do you ever have time to sort of look back and look back at what, you know, yourself and your brothers have done for the cities? You were saying there, you know, the people looking up to you, carving that legacy. You know, it's not just yourself, it's Liam, it's Stephen and Callum as well. Do you ever sort of have look back, appreciate, obviously Liam and Callum's careers are still going on now, but looking back and appreciating, we've done great things for this city?
Not really. And it's a strange one, boxing, and I'm managing kids now sometimes and advise them on things like that, but the minute you start believing your own hype or your own bullshit, so to speak, you get knocked out, or you'll get beaten, you'll fall on your ass. You've got to always look forward, not back. Since I've retired, I've had a little look back, I've had a little think about what we did, and sort of not rested on my laurels as such, but that's what happens when you fight. You can't rest on your laurels, but when you retire, you can have a look back, and it is with a bit of fondness now. You know what I mean? I can look back now and think I did okay, and the lads have done okay, and it's been hard, and it's a long, hard road, and I'd do it all again in a heartbeat if you give me a second chance to do it. But it goes so quick, so I've got to advise these kids now to enjoy it while it's happening, make the most of it. Don't dwell on the bad too much, don't get too carried away with the good too much, and then when you retire, you can have a look back. But with us, I think once the 4 of us are done and we're never going to fight again, I think then we'll have a good look back. We've had a film crew, a documentary team following us now for the last 14 months or so, and it's going to be there for another probably 8 to 10 months, and then there'll be a documentary out in the future on it. That might give us a chance to look back into it more, because we've got to go go through all the old catalogue of fights and the old archives and that. So we'll have to sit down and be forced in a way to go through it all, and that might help us enjoy it a bit more. But it's one of them sports, boxing. You can't really look back at your wins and think how good you was at the start while you're still fighting, especially because you get flattened, and too many kids nowadays believe in their own hype before they actually do it, and that's a big learning thing for you not to do, a big lesson not to take. Don't sort of look back until you're definitely done.
Absolutely. Well, I suppose we'll touch on and we'll reflect on your brother's performance, Callum Smith against Artur Beterbiev last week in Quebec. You've had a couple of days now to sort of sit on it, sleep on it. How do you reflect on last Saturday night?
Just the same thing as what I did while I was watching it. He's strong as anything, good fighter, someone I respected a lot till I got over there, and I just can't see past all this atypical tests. That for me, that's not good. There's no place for that in boxing, and he can say he's clean all he wants, only he'll know, but there's no atypical test being flying up in other places. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it is what it is. It's not a positive test, it's not a negative test also, and that's the important thing that, in my opinion, people need to remember. It's not a negative test, and then you come back 2 weeks later and test and it's negative, or a week later and it's negative. That's fine. It's always going to be negative, because if you was cheating, you won't be cheating a week later when you know you're getting tested. But when that first test has happened, there's been elevated levels of human growth hormone and testosterone. Now he's 39 years of age, I'm 41. My testosterone levels will be not unlike they were when I was 31, especially when I was 21. That's life, that's normal, that's natural. Unless he's some freak of nature, then, which he says he is, then that's up to him and that's up for the people to decide. It's not my place to say or to sort of accuse him. I've got my opinion on it, and everyone else has got theirs on it, and people can believe what they like, but what happens. I've never seen anyone as strong up close. He was very, very strong, efficient, and he's a good fighter, and that's the hard part. It's easy to take when you lose to a better man. There's no problem with that. Callum, Stephen, Liam, myself, any fighters that I know, my friends who fight, I've got no problem taking it on the chin when you lose to a better fighter. It's when there's other issues in play that's when it gets a bit hard to swallow. But the better man won on the night and stuff.
Well, I suppose we'll touch on it now. You mentioned about the atypical finding. It's something that you can't really get. You can't get past it. When that situation came in about December, and you came aware of it, how do you sort of assess that situation? Because, as you said, it is a grey area. It's not an adverse finding, but you said there is still grey areas around it. It's not an adverse finding. So, how do you really get over that sort of situation?
Again, it's not really for me. I'm not done fighting. It's for Callum. So Callum's known that, and Callum's still got in the ring there, trying his best to win and thinking I'm going to beat him anyway. And he was very confident going in there in his ability and his power and his strength and his chin. Very confident, and the better man won on the night, as you say. But I think that's a question for Callum. For us, it's different. For his family, it's different. We want to protect him and make sure he's all right. He's my kid brother. He's my youngest brother, and Natalie's a big brother. You want to look after him, but that's the same for Stephen and Liam also. He's their kid brother as well. And when you're getting in the ring with someone who's having drug tests being atypical, never mind positive or adverse, it was atypical. That's enough for us to assume, and that's enough for the boxing world to assume and the general public to assume, because it's not a positive, but it's not a negative. So at the end of the day, it is what it is. It's for everyone else to make their minds up. It's for Artur Beterbiev to convince people that he's not a cheat. It's not for anyone else to say he is. It's for him to say that he's not, and he's saying that he's not. So we've all got to accept his word for it. But whether you accept it or not is your business and your prerogative, and not his.
And do you feel like it's heightened now with so much recently coming out about adverse findings and drug tests, and now when we never really heard of, I can't really think of many atypical findings coming out public, especially recently. So do you feel like it sort of does cause confusion and concern, because it's something that we haven't really seen before?
I'm honestly sick to death of boxing, and all these drug tests are pointless. They're absolutely pointless. If you're having elevated levels or something, and then you have to go back and test a week later. If you tell me I've got a drug test next week and I'm taking something, I won't be on that next week. I will have that out my system next week. That's how the drug testers and the drug makers and the drug administrators are doing it. And I remember hearing a line once from Kerry Kayes, very respected man, lovely fella, good friend of mine, And I asked him, I remember saying something along the lines of, how are these cheating bastards getting away with it all the time? And he said, the drug makers will always be ahead of the drug testers. That's how they get away with it. The drug makers and the drug inventors will always be one step ahead of the drug testers. And that's it. So unless we start keeping these samples for 10 years or the results for 10 years, test for things retrospectively, they're always going to keep getting away with it, drug cheats. And that's it. And again, I'm not saying Artur Beterbiev directly is a drug cheat, but the people who are having these tests are always going to get away with it because of some loophole or some, oh, the levels were high but it wasn't enough. If you've got it in your system, even if your body produces it naturally, you've got to look at the age of the fighter or the athlete, you've got to look at the diet or the nutrition or everything else. Again, I'm not a scientist, so I don't know, but Callum's wasn't atypical, and the fighters on the undercard were not atypical. There wasn't any cause for concern. Every other test, they were all negative tests, and the one after the fight for Callum will be negative, and the one after the fight for Beterbiev should be negative. But what's the point in doing them if, when there is something there, you just go back and test a week later? That's my opinion on it. I think the drug testing associations like VADA and all the others, they're severely underfunded. They're not going to have the means or the funds or the finance or the logistical sort of nous to be able to test every fighter all the time. But in my opinion, that's what needs to happen. You should be tested regularly, either weekly, either monthly, especially randomly. I had drug testers at my door when I was fighting. 6 o'clock in the morning, banging on the door with a clipboard and a lanyard on. UK anti-doping, I've got to come in and test you. No problem, mate. Come in, make him a cup of tea. And I know when I'm doing that, I'm fine because I'm not taking anything. But there's fighters now taking things and getting caught with positive tests and saying, oh, I didn't take it intentionally. I've seen fighters banned for years by taking an over-the-counter supplement, but they didn't mean to take. They didn't know anything bad was in it, but they just bought it over the counter and drank it, a pre-workout supplement, but it had something in it that showed up the same as ephedrine or the same as speed or something, and they're banned for years. But these fighters now at the moment, they're like, oh, I didn't intentionally take it, so that doesn't count. That's a load of shit. You're responsible for what's in your body. That's what all of us are told, every athlete, every fighter, that's what you're told. You're responsible for what's in your body. So again, I don't know what's going to happen with boxing, but boxing's in a bad place with drug testing. I've said it on other interviews, I'll say it on this one. Boxing's in a very bad place with drug testing, and it needs to sort itself out and sharpish.
So with what you're saying there, is it sort of a more case of when it comes to sort of, I'm trying to think of the word, when it comes to, when you say taking it accidentally, so no accountability, but from more would you say it's like, no, there's no smoke without fire at the end of the day? If you're sort of pushing there's these certain supplements that there is sort of more an intention that you are sort of trying to bend the rules in a way.
You said it and I agree with you. There's no smoke without fire, and that's the whole point that we're trying to get to. I think that's the whole point that boxing is trying to get to. But you see these idiots online and they're blind and they've never been involved in a fight, or they've never been involved in anything to do with boxing on a level apart from watching it on the telly or getting to the odd fight here or there. But they've never been near a ring. They've never been sort of involved in with a family member or a friend or a fighter that they manage or look after or represent, or someone who they support in a fight. If they were in there against someone who they assume was taking drugs, it'd be a different thing. But they're like defending other fighters now, saying, oh, they're clean. Like, how do you know they're clean? You don't know they're clean when the people closest to them might not even know they're clean. You know what I mean? It's like you can't just assume someone's clean because they live a good life on telly or on social media. I've seen it time and again, fighters on social media, and they're putting every single workout on social media, working hard, grinding away. Do you not think every other fighter does that? They just don't post about it on social media. There's fighters winning world titles and taking the balls off, being champions, and they're not putting the workouts on social media, so people will assume that they're not working hard. And there's fighters who are absolutely crap on every single workout and thing they eat and every mouthful online, and people think, oh, he's an animal. No, they're not. They're just showing you everything. You see what a fighter will show you, and a fighter's never going to show you going to a clinic or going to a doctor or going to someone else to get a drip put in them with herbal remedies or natural stuff that will make you feel better, or vitamin B12 or B6 or whatever else. You're not going to see that side of the game, but they'll defend the fighter and say, oh no, he's clean, he wouldn't do that. You don't know him, you don't know who they are. That's what I'm getting at. I've had enough of boxing in the sense that it's becoming its own worst enemy, and I don't mean for the fights, I mean for the drugs at the moment, and that's the biggest thing in boxing at the minute, what needs fixing and sharpish. I've said for years, if you fail a test, you should be banned for life, because this is a fight, it's not a race, it's not you're going to run faster than me, so that's it. You could kill me in that ring if you're taking performance enhancing drugs or steroids or testosterone. I don't agree with TUE's, therapeutic use exemption. I don't agree with it. I know I've fought fighters who've been on drugs. I know I've fought fighters who've had TUEs. I know I've fought fighters who've been taking illegal drugs and on steroids. I know that for a fact. If you are over the age of 30 and you're not producing testosterone, you can legally go and get a therapeutic use exemption from a doctor to put your levels back up to what you was when you were maybe 21, 22 years of age. That's cheating. There's a reason why it's a young man's sport, and it is mainly because of that. They're producing more testosterone than you at 40, but you can go and get a letter off the doctor to get them levels back up to what they should have been when you were younger. That's cheating. It's not right in my opinion, but people get away with it because of loopholes and laws and things, and that's where it gets confusing, and that's the confusion that it causes with boxing fans, but more importantly with boxing people. There's people in boxing who've been in boxing for 25, 30 years who are still sort of blind to the fact that he's a cheat, he's taking drugs, she's doing this, she's doing that, and no one's sort of saying nothing about it because you've got no proof, or you don't want to cross lines or get sued or accuse people. But it's everywhere at the moment, and the amount of tests and the amount of people that are being caught for drugs needs cutting down sharpish, in my opinion. It needs to be fixed quick.
Definitely. Moving on, just the last one from me. Obviously, Callum done an interview with Sky at the end of the fight, and there's obviously a lot of talk about what could be next for him. Ideally, when you look at it now, I know it's very, very soon, but what do you think is next for Callum? What would you like for him? We heard about sort of Eddie and Frank talking about the 5v5. I'm sure that's something he'd be interested in. What do you think would be next for Callum?
I don't know. I think he's going to have a little rest. He's going to need a rest. He's had like sort of 3 camps in one for that fight, and he's I think inevitably his inactivity caught up with him through not being able to fight. He should have got a fight after the last one was postponed, but it didn't happen. So he'll have that rest and he'll have a think. But as I've said in other interviews, he's his own man. I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know what decision he's going to make, but it's entirely up to him. Whatever he does, I'll back him 100%.
Absolutely. Paul, just want to say thank you for taking time to speak to me. Really, really good to catch up with you. I really enjoyed this chat, mate, and it's good, mate. Top man, mate. Thank you.
We need to think of a new advert for freebets.com.
Get your best betting offers from freebets.com.
Yeah, that'll do.
The following deals are now live.